Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Art 196, Introduction to Web Design for the spring semester 2022. What I want to do today is begin lesson 6. And what that involves is basically building a template for all the final lessons. We already started that template last Thursday when we worked on lesson 5 and we built the basic architecture or structure of our web page. And that's what you're looking at on the screen right now. It's really very minimal, but it provides the basic foundation for the page. And in some respects, the divs that you see, that's kind of what they're called, are basically little rectangular containers that hold content, and they're kind of like spandex pants. You know, they shrink to near nothing, but as soon as you put content in them, they fill out. That's kind of how I think of them. Anyway, the first thing that we're going to work on today will be adding the Navbar. Okay, and that's where Bootstrap comes in. That there's a lot of Bootstrap elements that come with Dreamweaver that you should consider using when you're developing your own websites, because it builds in a responsive website automatically. And that's really important today. Since most people in general now have smartphones, not everyone, but many. And if they have a smartphone, they're capable of viewing websites on them. And you want to make sure that the access to the viewer of your website or by the viewer of your website is easy. It's easy for them to navigate. And that means having a responsive website so that it displays properly on each size screen that it's viewed on. It detects that. So before I start adding the Navbar here, I want to make sure that all of you understand that when you open up lesson 6, you want to make sure that the root folder is connected to lesson 6. So if you recall from before, I created last spring a folder for us. It was Art 196, Spring 2021. This is my root folder, but I want to make sure the folder for my, I should say for the site folder, but I want to make sure that it's linked to the correct root folder that contains all the necessary elements that we'll need to build this next stage in our website. So make sure that when you do that, you go to Site, Manage Sites, and you'll see that I have in mine, I have a number of sites that I manage. I want to make sure that Art 196 is selected. I don't know what you named your site. It could be anything. It could also be Art 196, okay? But then what you need to do is double click, and then where it says local site folder, that's what they're calling it, but it's also called your root folder. Make sure that you click on the little folder icon and that you go inside Dreamweaver 2017. Okay, we have all the lessons, and that you make sure that you select the lesson 6 folder, and that will become the root folder for this. Then in addition to that, because we'll be using many of the same images in each of the lessons, you need to make sure that you select the image folder contained inside lesson 6, which is the current lesson that we're working on. So when I click on, I twirl down and I select local info at the very top where it says default images folder, I'm going to click on that. Okay. And I'm going to go back to lesson 6 that I selected as my root folder and make sure that I select the image folder and click choose. If you don't do that, especially later when we complete lesson 7 and you publish it, the code will detect images, for example, that are linked to your page, and it will go to it, but it won't see them. You'll get a broken link because it wants to go to maybe a lesson that you had completed prior to this one. And you want to make sure that it has all the current links updated. Okay, So that's really, really important. It's part of the of web design that if you're not careful can really make your life kind of a living hell. It can cause serious problems with your website. So here's our basic grid. Remember, it's broken down into rows and columns, very basic structure. We have 4 rows. We have the top row for our nav bar. We have the second row for our header that we'll be building, and probably not today, but in a little while. Then we have our third row, and you'll see that we rename these using the proper syntax for HTML5. This is our main row, but if you recall, last week we broke it down into 3 columns. Okay. And again, using the correct syntax. For this, we have a left and a right aside, and the one in the middle is using the correct syntax is called an article. And then the very last row is our footer. Okay, basic structure of our website. So let me scroll down. Let's select footer. There you go. So that's the footer in there. So what we're going to focus on today is going back up here to the first one. Now, we didn't rename this, and it has contained inside that row, that main row, it has a div. And that div is named .column small -12. Remember, that just means that for a small screen, it has 12 units. And for any website that we're building here using HTML5, and we're using, excuse me, we're using Bootstrap, that it will be broken down into 12 units. And if it's, 1 column, that will be 12 units. If you remember, recall from our main row, it's broken down into 3 columns. So at the moment, each column is equal in size. So that would be 4, 4, and 4 units. Again, adding up to 12. Well, this div, when we add our Bootstrap component of a basic nav bar, is unnecessary. So you select the div, and then if you want, you can just hit delete, or you can make sure that it's highlighted in the code view like I'm doing now, and hit delete. Okay. So now we can go back and you can select the row. No div inside it. And what I want to do is I want to switch over here to insert. Okay. Make sure that I have Bootstrap components selected. And then what I want to do is I want to scroll down here, and where it says Navbar, basic Navbar, that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And by clicking on it once, what it does is it brings up this other little, I don't know what you call it, a little indicator here of where do you want it to go. You want it to go before that div, after, or do you want it nested? The first one you want to use is nested. You want it to be inside that div, okay, inside the one named row. So what we're going to do, it says this component is not compatible with the current Bootstrap CSS file browser. We're going to just say yes to update it. Boom. And now you'll see we have it's updated, and we have a navigation bar, a very basic one to get us started. But it looks, at the moment, it looks nothing like the finished one. So let me look at it real quick here. I'm going to look at my layout too. So they look similar, but they're not. I mean, we're going to eliminate elements, and we're going to dress them up and make them look a little bit prettier, for lack of a better word, but something that's from a graphic design perspective, a little bit more engaging. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my layout, and now we're going to start the process of deleting elements that we don't need. And then we're going to add elements that we do need. And really what we need here are the basic links. We're going to, in lesson 11, we will reinsert a drop-down menu, but we're not going to use it right now. We don't need a search engine right now, and we don't need the link to the right, but maybe later on when you're working on your final website, but that's something that you'll want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the drop-down. But then as I do that, you'll notice down here, okay, the tag selector. This is really important. If I click on that, I have the entire drop-down toggle selected. I want to select the whole drop-down, okay? Not just the toggle, but the whole drop-down. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and then I can go ahead and hit delete, and it should be gone. Let's go ahead and try again. And hit delete. If it doesn't go away, it's not going away for me, then I'm going to go ahead here. And again, I'm going to highlight all of this like so and hit delete from there, and it goes away. The next one that we want to get rid of is the link. So again, making sure that I have the correct element selected down here, I'm going to go ahead and I have UL for the entire link selected. That's all selected. And there we go. So, and then I'm going to go over to that and make sure that the Navbar nav right is selected. Hold on here. I want to make sure that I'm, again, if I goof up here, it could be, I could easily mess things up as I'm talking and not paying attention to what I'm doing. So I'll start by selecting the end here. Here's the A link. Here is the list item. That's the next element contained within that. And then here's the next one, the Navbar nav right. So that's the one that I want to get rid of right now. Actually, nope, I don't want that one. I want the one before it. Notice how it selected the whole Navbar. I don't want that. I want to go back and just select this element over here. So let's go and select the collapsed. No. Okay, let me go back again. Told you things can get goofed up very easily here. Start with the A link, the list item, and then there we go. The unordered list. That's what that is here. That's what the UL stands for. Okay. Now, after that, we're going to get rid of the form, but I'm going to go ahead and try again and hit the delete key. Or let's just go ahead and select it from here and hit delete, and that goes away. So I'm good. I'm gradually eliminating elements that I don't need, and then we'll come back and we'll add the elements that we want. So again, we don't need the submit button. We don't need the search, and we're not going to use the drop down either. But again, to make sure that I select all of what I need, I'm going to come down to the tag selector, make sure that I select the button, select the nav form button here. You can see that everything there is selected. So now I can go ahead and I can click. Come on. There we go. So the whole thing is selected. Now I can go ahead and I can hit the delete key and remove that. Again, the next one is a drop down. And it seems like we're getting rid of everything, but we're not. So the next one is the drop down menu. And again, I can select the A link. I can select the next one, the list item, the drop down. And then after that, I select, there you go. I have the whole drop down. We're going to come back here, click on here, make sure that it's selected in blue. When you see it outlined in orange, and that means you can go in and edit it. So what I want to do now is get rid of it. And now we're going to be in the next step is to go back in here, and we're going to add elements. We're going to change brand to, by just clicking in it, and you see the orange. I can go ahead and I can highlight that, And I'm looking at the code view as well, but I'm going to name that our home button. Okay. And very soon, we're probably going to get another, we're going to get rid of the class Navbar brand as well too. And also the span tag, there's a few things that we need to get rid of at the very end. So the next one, and I'm sorry, I got to look at textbook to see which one we need to add next. It's probably about us. I'm not sure, to be quite honest. No, it's green news. Okay, and then yeah, we have home, and then now I want green news. So by clicking in there, I'll go ahead and type green news. Instead of having just a simple generic link, we have one that will be specific to what the website that we'll be building here. The next one is going to be green events. So I'll click in here again. While it's highlighted in orange, I can highlight it and I can type in here green events. Okay. Now I need to add additional elements here. Now, what I need to do though is I could, there's easy ways of doing this and there's hard ways of doing this. What I choose to do is always go the easy way. So what I'm going to do down here, clicked in here with the tag selector. Okay, I have the A link. Okay. And if I click here, notice that that's the unordered list. That's selecting all of them. Well, I'm going to come back here and select the A link. And then down here, you can see that it is a list item, the entire list item. And to add that to our unordered list, and see we have UL opening tag, UL closing tag, and these are the elements within it, our list items. I'm going to go ahead with that highlighted. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let's undo that. I want to make sure that that's all highlighted. I'm going to copy it in code view. Click here and hit the return key and hit space and hit Command V or Control V to make a copy of it and paste it. And then I can go in, and here I have two green events. And then we'll need green travel. So I'll go ahead and here, highlight that, put in green travel. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead again, and I'm going to paste. I'm going to go to the end of our unordered list. I'm going to hit the return key, and I'm going to hit Command or Control V again to paste once again. And now I can go ahead and I can change and edit the name of that. So we went from green travel to now what do we have? We need green tips and then contact us and about us. So go back here, highlight the very text that we want to edit. And I'm going to go back in here and set as green tips. And then again, come back at the end in my code view, hit the return key, go ahead and hit Command V, Control V. And I'm just aligning all this up in code view to make sure that it looks nice. And then this was what? Contact us and then about us. And select that, make sure that that line is selected. Go ahead and hit return and hit paste again. And the last one is going to be about us. Okie doke. There we go. So we've added the elements that we want, but we still have some code to clean up. Okay, so I've added all those, but now it's cleaning up the bootstrap to make it work for us. To build this all from scratch would be overwhelming. I mean, it can be done, but point being is that why do that? It's best to start from, basic, a basic construct of what you need, and then add to or remove from as needed, rather than to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, and have to rebuild it from scratch. And that's true for the entire page as well. When we're done with it, you can always go back and you can edit it and revisit it, and you can add to, remove from elements, and make it what you want. But you have the basic structure intact, so there's no point in building it again. So the first thing that I need to do here is where it says, down here, it says class active. Let's see. So I want to go class, let's go down here. Well, I got to find it. So let me go ahead and with the entire navbar selected, I don't want the whole thing selected. I'm just going to select the whole navbar. And we're going to get rid of where it says brand. But I'm going to come down here. It says class navbar default, class navbar. Let's go back in here. Let's select brand and see what that looks like. Okay. So I want to get rid of, in the textbook, it says that it will be class active. Well, I want to get rid of the brand. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave the A where it says class. I'm going to highlight that navbar brand all the way to the end of the double quotes and get rid of that. Okay. Now that gets kind of screwy. So I goofed up here. So I'm going to undo, make sure that that is done correctly. Class navbar, maybe I did it wrong. Let's go back again. Class equals navbar brand. I want to make sure that I have href. So let's get rid of that. No, it's not right. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this. No, let's go back. Let's bring that back. Let's go back here. My mistake. Leave brand there. Let's go ahead and get rid of where it says class active. That's what I want right here. There we go. So get rid of the active. I also want to get rid of the span tag here. That's unnecessary. So we have an opening tag and a closing tag for the span tag, and I'm going to get rid of that as well. Notice that home is a little bit different. So I'm going to go back to that brand and see if I can't get rid of that. I don't want them to be different from all the rest. So let's go ahead and select that again. Make sure that I select the list item. And where it says brand, yeah, because it's a little bit larger than the rest. I suppose we could leave it, but I don't want it. Hold on here. It's hunting through the code here to find it. Here we go. So I want class equals, let's try this again. I have class equals navbar hyphen brand. So I'm going to try to get rid of that, see what happens. No, it doesn't work. So well, let me come down here and see. I'm having trouble with it. So for right now, I guess I'll leave it. Okie doke. So now we want to dress it up. I'm going to leave this alone and I'll come back to it over when we're not here and let you know where I kind of messed up. Okay. Well, I want where it says a link. Okay, let me go ahead here. I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to select the a link here. And I don't want I can always undo. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Or actually what I could do is I could delete it if I want. Let's see if I can delete it. And I don't want the icon bar. I don't want the default button. There's a lot in here I don't want that they have added that didn't exist before. I'm going to leave it for right now. So let's begin to now go ahead and add the CSS, work with the CSS designer to make it, look a little bit more appealing like this. Okay, we want our nav bar to look like this. So I'm going to go back to my layout and I'm going to go ahead now and switch to CSS designer. Okay. So now what I want to do is we have Bootstrap already, and notice that that's read only. I'm going to create a brand new one now. That's going to be a style sheet that we're going to override, but you never edit the Bootstrap CSS. You may inadvertently make changes to it that are not exactly what you had intended. So you leave the Bootstrap alone. You can delete it, add to it, but you don't never edit it. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to add a new source. And I don't want to, I can attach an existing CSS file, but what I want to do is create a new CSS file. Okay. And it will be empty. And I want it to link. I don't want it to import it. I want it to link. So I'm going to call it green styles. Let me see here. I'm trying to follow the book so that by changing it, it will make sense to you. I want it to be green styles CSS, I think. Something like that. Hold on here. Yeah, green style CSS. So I'll put in here green styles dot CSS. Okay. So that's the name that the book has given us. You can name it whatever you want, but if you're going to be following along with the book, then it's important that you probably use the same name so we don't get goofed up. Okay. So now I'm ready to select green styles. We want this to be global changes. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to begin to add selectors. Okay. If we use Bootstrap and we look in here, you can see that they have media query here that they've already applied. You can also see that there are a whole slew of styles that they've added here that we may or may not use. That's why it gets so complicated and that you don't want to make any changes. When I select the green styles here, it only applies to what we're going to add to it. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and under the selector, I'm going to hit plus. And what I want to do is I want to make this our dot row. This will be our default select or default I want to say style for the navbar. So that will be .row space .navbar -default. I hit the return key twice. And now when I click on that, notice that the whole navbar highlights in blue. That's what I want to see. That means that that is being affected by that. So now what I want to do is, with that done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make some changes in here. So the first thing that we want to do is to look over here, and I'm going to turn off show set. And I want to make sure that I look at all of them. And you can see that in the right-hand side here, we have the properties panel. And it starts with the layout. We can affect the type or the font that we choose. We can affect the borders that surround the nav bar and the individual elements within the nav bar. We can affect the background color. So that's what all of these tabs do. And that's what we're going to start next. Okay. So we're going to start with the background color. And with that selected, I'm going to go to background and I'm going to click, make sure that the background is selected. And I'm not, later we will, in a minute, we're going to put a gradient, but for right now, I want to select a default color. And you'll notice that I already have them built, but from doing this before, but it's, I believe it's 069, which is hexadecimal number. And you can see that that's already been added. So I'll go ahead and just for the heck of it, I'll add it again. There we go. So it's this one right here. So we'll make sure that that's selected and we can click off of it. And you can see that the background color has changed. That's what we want. So the next thing that we want to do is to dress it up even further. And if you're wondering why we have a basic color and we also have a gradient, is that older browsers don't necessarily support gradients. So in the event that someone's using a really old browser that does not support gradients, which is new to CSS3, and that's been around for 5-7 years, it will show properly. It will display properly. It won't look as good as you would like, but it won't be a disaster either. So what I want to do next now is we're going to add a background here. I don't want an image. I'm going to add a gradient. So if I click on that, again, that pops up with all the colors. And so what we want the top one here, this to be, again, 069. So that's the color that I just selected. Make sure that that's right. I'm going to switch here to hexadecimal. Nope, that's not the right one. I'm going to put in here pound or ampersand or not pound, 069. Okay. And then the bottom one here, I'm going to go ahead and we want to select 08A. Again, I'm just following the textbook here. So that 08A. Okay, a little bit lighter blue. So we have dark blue to light. You want to make sure that this is set to 180 degrees. That's kind of hard to see. And as soon as I click on there, you'll notice that I see a nice little gradient in there. Okay, so we've got our gradient added. And now what we want to do, and I think by the time we're done with this, we'll probably be done for today. What we want to do is we want to add borders to each of our links here. Okay, so that it defines them as buttons. And that's, if I look at the finished one here, you can see that we've defined, and then we'll add a hover state as well later on. But you can see the individual links here that are as individual buttons that look like buttons that you would see maybe on an old VCR or something. And to do that, what we need to do is define the border. And if you recall, and after you read the the chapter 3 on CSS, we can define the border of each of these elements, the top, the right, the bottom, and the left, and that's the order that it's usually done. With each one with a different color, with a different size border, or none. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go back over here, and it will affect all of them. So what we need to do is we need to, in order to define that, we need to create a new selector again. So this one is going to be similar, but not quite the same. It's going to be .row space .nav. Whoops, make sure that I spell it right. .navbar hyphen nav. And then what I want is a right caret. And then I want list item, because that's what each of those elements are. And then a right caret again, and then A, okay? So now I'm going to hit the return key twice. Click off of it and click, and hopefully when I make the changes now, they will all become appear here. But with the background color, it's kind of hard to see. So maybe if I were to, I'm going to go back with a highlight here, background color. And maybe I'm going to disable it just for a moment. And I'm going to disable the background image for a moment so we can see the highlight. So I'll come back here and make sure that I've selected this correctly. And we're going to come back and we're going to go ahead and add elements to our border now. So what we want to do now is to the top of the border. Okay, so we select the top. If you want it uniformly all the way around, you would make it here to the left. If you only want the top to be affected, then you would do that. And then, as I said, the right, bottom, and then left. They each have separate settings. So what we want to do is the top, the width is going to be 1 pixel. Okay, so I'll measure it. It's measured in pixels. Style is solid. Whoops, width, I want to make sure that it's one pixel. I want to make sure that the style is solid, but you'll notice that there's dotted lines, all kinds of other options available. And then we specify the color. So the color for this is going to be pound, octothorpe, whatever you want to call it, 0 AE, 0 AE, very light green or blue. What am I saying here? Okay. And now we'll click off of that. And it's hard to see, but all of them are in green or a light blue at the very top. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to select that again. And now we're going to go back to the borders and we're going to select the right one. And this is going to be similar. The width is going to be 1 pixel. And the style is going to be solid. Just they're going to be a lot of them the same, but this is the part that gets kind of tedious. But now the color is going to be different. It's going to be a little bit darker. It's going to be pound 037. So I want down here. How do I know which color? Because the book is telling me here what one we want. And you can see that it's a much darker blue. So I can click that, click off of it. And now to the right, you'll see that there's a dark blue border appearing. So the bottom is going to be the same as this one here. So let's go select the bottom. Similar if you had a light source from the upper left-hand corner. So again, width 1 pixel. Back in there and highlight that. And 1 pixel, 1 px. There we go. And the style is going to be solid. And the color is going to be, again, 037. There we go. Now you can see that there. Now I'm going to have a light blue over to the left. So that's be the last one. And that, again, that's the same one that we used before. I want pixels. I want that to be 1 pixel. I want it to be solid. And I want this one to be the 0 AE that I used at the very beginning. Okay. Okay. Now, if you look carefully, they start to be defined. And what I want to do now, though, is I want to go back to the background. So let's go back to the background. Okay. And let's look at the background elements from here. And let's turn these back on. And you can begin to see that each of these are defined. Okay. The next thing that we want to do, though, is that the black and gray type is kind of hard to read. So we want to make sure that we change the type for that as well. And then when I do that, that should probably wrap it up for today. So let's go ahead and got that. Did I change the color of the text yet or no? Let's go ahead and save everything. I'm going to go ahead and save all of this. Wow. Save as. And I'm going to call it my layout spring 22. I'm using the camel casing underscore 2022. Okay, so I know which one I'm working on here. But one thing that you should note, by saving that, notice that everything went away. Now, what I need to do is undo, go back, and that might be it for today. Who knows? I screwed up. Let's go back. Because I probably should have done save file all, save all. So let's go back here. And let's go ahead and file save all and see if that doesn't affect it. Now let's go back to live, split. No, I screwed up. So I guess that's it for today. And then I'll come back on Thursday and I will get all of this corrected for you. I should have probably said select save all. If I have my green styles here, right, this. I guess I didn't save any of that. That's what happens when you do that. Yeah, none of them were saved. But anyway, this is what it looks like when you don't have any styles here. Okay. So I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to fix this and then I'm going to go back. And then on Thursday, we'll come back and we'll continue here where we left off and I'll show you where I goofed. Okay. I should have saved, I thought I had saved the style sheet along with everything else, but I guess I hadn't. So that's it, unless you have any questions. No questions? No? Are you guys coming along with your Wix website? Okay. You need any explanation or any, and want any feedback for that? No? Okay. Well, then have a good day. And then we'll call it a day. Sorry for the goof up, but that's happens all the time. You think you're on the right track, and if I'm not paying attention, while I'm talking to you, then something fails. And I'll go back and hunt it down and fix it. Okay? So that's it. Have a good day.